All right, Chris Yates here with Huddle Productions, and I've got an awesome guest, one of my favorites, Dallas Sonnier, who now in the old days you would say Hollywood producer, but now it's really movie producer, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not all in Hollywood, and we're going to explain that to the viewers here in a minute. But I always like to go backwards. I've got doctor friends, attorney friends, real estate agents. There's not many movie producers I know. It's a very unique field that you're in. Tell people, how you got into it and why you wanted to get into the film movie industry.
Yeah. When I graduated from Highland Park in '98, all of my friends went to colleges in Texas or in the South, a couple of Ivy League kids. I was the only one that really went west and ended up in Los Angeles and USC Film School. And it was great. I really had a blast and a good time doing it. I wanted to go into movies because I loved watching movies so much, especially with my dad as a kid.
Okay.
And I just thought, let's go out there and try to figure it out. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any connections. I just went out there and worked hard and went to school and found my way through.
And when you're young, you're like, oh, I can do this, no problem, right? Now looking back, you're like, man, how did I make it? Is that kind of
Well, yeah. So I graduated high school in '98. So there was still, very little internet presence at that point.
Yeah.
AOL and Prodigy and CompuServe. But really all I was learning about the film industry was from magazine interviews, books that I was reading at the bookstore, things like that. I mean, the information flow was very limited. And so I went out there not knowing really anything, but just knew I wanted to try and make movies, and I knew I wanted to be a business person. So I didn't want to be a director. I didn't want to be an actor.
Okay.
I didn't want to write. I wanted to create the business end of movies. And so I actually found myself at USC Film School, not only as a high schooler, but then also when I went for undergrad, I was able to help them create a major called the Business of Cinema, now called the Business of Cinematic Arts.
Huh.
Wow. And it's a pretty healthy major now, and I'm still involved. So, it's cool to be able to go to college to be a movie producer. I mean, that's pretty cool to say.
That's awesome. Where do you think you got your break? What was your biggest break where you're like, okay, this is going to be legit? Because everyone has a dream. I want to go do this, but there's a lot of people that don't make it. What was your big break?
Yeah. So I knew that I didn't have the connections that most of the other people did. And funny enough, even back then, if you didn't go to an Ivy League school, you were seen as sort of a second tier candidate for people, even USC, which is wild.
Yeah.
So I was behind all the Harvard kids and things like that. So I needed to find avenues and ways in. So what I did was I interned for a production company at Paramount.
Smart.
One executive there was from Toronto, and she did not have a driver's license. And when you come to Los Angeles, you have to drive down the street, right? It's not a New York walking culture.
Right.
So I made a deal with her that I would drive her every day to lunch, to her meetings. And in exchange for that, I would walk into the meeting with 5 minutes left to go and get to ask the person she was meeting one or two quick questions and introduce myself. And so through that, I met hundreds of producers and agents and managers and people like that, and ended up meeting with an agent who eventually got me my first job at a talent agency called the United Talent Agency.
That is all. You got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it takes. If you've got to drive someone to lunch every day, you do it, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Now you're here. And what's interesting to me is most people think you got to be in Hollywood to make movies. You've decided to come home. Tell people the story. And unfortunately, it was an emotional story with your family, just so people can get an understanding of why you came back to Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, I've spent 16 years in Los Angeles and built a really healthy business out there. I was, instrumental in the early career of Greta Gerwig, Leslie Headland, Jenny Lumet, Jessica Goldberg, all of these fancy filmmakers now. and I also managed Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Nice.
Wild. Right, I had a two-headed dragon client list, but so I learned how to produce by being Steve's manager, and over the course of the early 2010s, I lost both of my parents. Really sad stories, national news stories, and I felt a calling to come home. Also, we had our third kid, and I just felt like raising three kids in Los Angeles was too much to handle.
Right.
You know, I'm a more conservative guy in terms of my politics, so I just felt like I wanted to come back to Texas, establish my roots, build something here, and so that's what I did. So it was a sort of a confluence of many different things, but really all about coming home and sort of reconnecting with my roots, and trying to build something special here.
Not to dive too much back into it, but when you say lost both your parents, it was not just losing your parents. It was, I mean, I've never heard a story like this. Tell people kind of what happened with both your mom and dad.
So my mother was so enamored with the fact of becoming a grandmother. Right, we just had our first kid in Los Angeles. It was the summer of 2010. And she had such a visceral reaction to that moment that she wanted to come live in Los Angeles and basically split from her husband at the time, the man she was married to at the time. And so she flew home and started the divorce proceedings. He did not take kindly to that. And as she was literally packing her bags, he shot and killed her in her home.
Wow.
2 years later to the day, my dad had started dating a woman out there in Lubbock. And her ex-boyfriend was very jealous by this fact, and we came to learn through the police investigation and the court systems that he paid another man to essentially go into my father's house and kill him one day after work. So, you know, look, these are, I mean, one of these things happening to a person would be enough to traumatize you for life.
Right.
To me twice. It happened to my family twice. Sort of this statistically impossible, insurmountable moment in time. And, you know, everyone deals with things differently. You can run for the hills, or you can decide to, you know, kind of, you know, take on the legacy of your parents, their, you know, what they taught you as a kid, the things you learned from them. My parents were both alphas, and they would have been furious if I had, you know, let my family go to the wayside or shirk my responsibilities. They would have loved the fact that I moved back to Texas, that I was building a movie studio, a movie production company here in town.
Mm-hmm.
They really would have been proud by that. I've, you know, reconnected with my faith. I've, you know, become sort of more open in my journey. All kinds of stuff. I am more. I was never not me out in Los Angeles, but I am now quintessentially me. So that's very freeing, and you know,
that's impressive that you dealt with that, and here you are. And congrats to you for doing that. My dad died as well. It was a horrible freak accident, hunting accident. It's something, but you had it worse. I mean, I'm really sorry about that.
Yeah,
but thanks. I really am very impressed of what you've done. Bringing the movie scene here to Dallas. Are you proud of that? Because, you know, Dallas is not known as a big movie, but you've created something really impressive here.
Yeah, I mean, we don't get a lot of support from the government here, right? Where other states like Georgia, New Mexico, Louisiana, New York, California to a certain extent, even Canada, they spend a lot of money investing in their local film communities because it's a real revenue generator. We have two challenges here. Number one, we don't have a state income tax, and most states lean on the state income tax in order to help, you know, fund the tax incentives. The other problem we have is there is such a we're in the middle of a culture war right now, and there's not a lot of sort of, you know, middle people coming together and a lot. There's not a lot of unity, and so you have a sort of a predominantly liberal industry that is at odds with a predominantly conservative, political system here. So there just isn't a good system in place. I've offered to help many, many, many times, and just have not had the interest from the government really to sort of understand it. And I tell everyone, like, everyone in the movie business is liberal. I'm an open conservative. Let me go and have the conversations with these people to try and help. But it's too complicated, and it's mixed up in the tourism industry and things like that. Anyway, all that said, yes, I'm very proud that we have made 5, 6, 7, 8 movies here in Texas. They're really cool. We've brought Jason Sudeikis to town. We've brought Guy Pearce to town, Thomas Lennon, Rebecca Romaine, James Badgedale, Thomas Jane, Radha Mitchell. I mean, all these great actors we brought to town. And, we hire as many local crew as possible. I've made a lot of friends in that business. And I hope, once we come out of COVID, we can make more movies here. I mean, it's hard. We're not getting the support we need, but at the same time, I like sleeping in my own bed at night. I like, making movies with my friends. So we'll see what happens.
Man, great. So a few more questions. So I love that you say you're a conservative, yet your movies are vicious as heck. That doesn't seem to match up to me. Tell me how you can really put those two together. I mean, you've got some vicious movies.
Yeah. Well, so I think first and foremost, I'm committed to authenticity.
Okay.
Right? So having gone through the tragedies that I've gone through, I want people to feel right an extreme emotion when they're watching a movie, right? So if they don't feel anything, it doesn't work for me. So that commitment to authenticity and sort of not cutting away, you got to watch it, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I think that the movie industry has it's disappointed conservative audiences so much that they're literally leaving in droves, right? People, the award shows, they're so negative to conservatives and things like that, that I think the movie business is a real turnoff. The problem is we can't leave the culture war ring, right? You got to keep fighting and whatever. So my opinion is, as great as Christian conservative movies are, and some of the things, like, I've enjoyed a lot of those movies, and I think a lot of those movies are really important. Mm-hmm. I also think what a conservative movie is today, or a movie that appeals to a conservative audience, is simply a movie that would have been made and celebrated in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, but simply in our woke culture today would not allow to be made by the system in Hollywood. So all I am is a counterculture programming that's a little outside the system. And therefore, because I am not anti-conservative, I am conservative.
What do you think in your mind when you look back at your movies and the style that you like? What makes a great movie in your mind?
Well, the first thing is the script. That's it. Okay. I have to have, like, when you read a great novel or a great play, you have a visceral reaction. You can see it in your head. The words, the descriptions are poetic. You're getting the vibe and the tone on the page. That's the foundation, right? When you're building a house, it doesn't matter how great the walls are, the furniture. If your foundation is faulty, you're in trouble. So the script is the foundation. After that, you got to hand it over to the director. Okay. And the director has to be a singular vision, no compromising within the boundaries of the schedule and the budget. Okay. So the second the director starts turning to other people and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? That collaborative spirit, which people love to talk about in this day and age, your movie is going to be bad. Huh. Now people can argue with me all they want on this. I do not seek a collaborative spirit from a director. I seek a director with a very specific vision that they're going to execute. Now, that doesn't mean we can't have a collegiate atmosphere where people are weighing in and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's got to be the director. It can't be a democracy. It has to be a director dictatorship where the director decides what goes into the movie and what doesn't. So I can give strong feedback and things like that, but it has to fall on the director's shoulders. So script first, then a director. Then, because of the sales marketplace, and they're so responsive to actors and the popularity of the actor, the name value, it's on me. It's now on me to go out and cast the biggest names possible so that we can be fiscally responsible to our investors and get our money back and have great actors. So it's really those three things.
That's a great breakdown, man. I didn't think about the director really does need to take charge, because if he lets it get away, then that gets away. That's interesting. Yeah. When you see something like when you're watching a movie or you're on the set and you go, that is the moment right there. How do you know? Or is it sometimes you don't know? Like, let's just even take, I don't know, the greatest movies of all time, where it's like, they have scenes or a quote, and then it becomes one of the most famous scenes ever. Do they know at that moment, or does it just naturally happen?
So I can only speak from my own experience, but exactly in the moment on set. Okay. So there's two kind of examples of that. One, when you're pulling off a really, really complicated action sequence, right? There's a gunfire, there's a squib hit from the actor that got shot, or there's a knife, and then the actors aren't right, all that kind of stuff. It's a series of steps, like a domino effect, and you have to, if one of them goes wrong, you have to start over, right? And that's an hour long. It's called a reset. So it's an hour long reset. When those dominoes happen in sequence and they time out correctly and everything looks good, and you don't have to use any visual effects to kind of make it look better in post, that's a huge win, and it.
Okay.
And you can move on. And some people are like, should we do it again? I'm like, no, we got it. We're good.
You just know, right?
I know. So that's the first thing. The second thing is acting performances. So I'm sitting in what we call video village. That's the director's chairs and the monitors and, where everyone kind of hovers around, just off a set, right? I will watch the monitor. I've got my headphones on. I'm listening to the scene. I'm watching it play out. And if it's great, I literally will start crying, like right there. Like it is an emotional process. So yeah, it when you have it.
That's pretty awesome. That's cool. What are you working on now, and what do you want to work on in the future?
Yeah, so we're really proud of a movie that we released earlier this year with the Daily Wire. So that's Ben Shapiro, the podcaster, his company. It's called Run, Hide, Fight. And it was a really controversial movie that we released. It's basically sort of a 17-year-old fights back against some school shooters.
Okay.
It's very violent. It's very tough to watch, but it's, I think, an important movie. And it found a massive audience with Daily Wire. We've also announced that we are making a movie with Gina Carano in the wake of her sort of being bullied by Star Wars and Lucasfilm and Disney and getting canceled, right? Mm-hmm. So we've announced a movie with her, so we're going to start shooting that in a couple of months.
All right.
And we're also really excited. We have a movie coming out in September called Till Death with Jason Sudeikis and Evangeline Lilly. And it's just fantastic. I mean, it's just so good. It's kind of got a Coen Brothers vibe to it. We shot it here in town. I think it's just terrific. So yeah, everything's been great. We're rock and rolling. We're excited to get the COVID. COVID has really hurt the movie business.
Yeah.
Being able to get on set and feel safe and things like that. So, look, I don't want to make it a political thing, but people are getting vaccinated. People are feeling more comfortable getting out on set, things like that. I talked to an actor the other day that hadn't left his house since March of 2020.
What?
I mean, my family's been eating inside restaurants since May of last year when Abbott reopened. So, it's different states have very different experiences, but the COVID insurance is coming down. The vaccinations are going up. There's starting to be an opportunity to get back on set. And so I think it's a matter of time here. I think we're going to get very active again. Hopefully we can do a lot of it in Dallas, but we'll go where the opportunity takes us. But Yeah, I'm ready to get back on set. It's been a year, and that's too long for me.
That's awesome, man. Dallas Sonnier, everybody, give him a kudos. This has been a great interview, great insights to everything in your history, and congratulations on things you've accomplished and things you're going to accomplish. Thank you for being on the
Chris.
show.
I appreciate it, man.
My pleasure.